Tonight on CFTK-TV News, TC Energy recently sold a pipeline project that they thought up. A fire happens to be burning near Rosswood, and we have word upcoming on National Indigenous People Days celebrations.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Good evening, I'm Cale Maslin. Here's what's making the news in the Northwest and beyond. Personnel are on the scene as a wildfire burns near Rosswood. CFTK-TV's Jaylene Matthews has more on the subject.
A wildfire believed to be caused by lightning is burning near Rosswood and was spotted about 20 kilometers down Big Cedar Road. Fire Information Officer Morgan Bloss says personnel are on site.
Yeah, so fire R40544 is currently estimated at about 1 hectare in size. It is also suspected lightning caused at this time. We do have a helicopter and 11 firefighters on site, and they are looking to get access to the fire so that they can put a guard along the outside, as well as that helicopter will be supporting with bucket support, so cooling the fire with water, and then helping sling in some gear so that crews can spend the night if that's required today. Currently, there's no values at risk. There are some values within a kilometer, but yeah, like I said, they're not at risk right now. And yeah, that's kind of what's going on right now.
Bloss says the fire is currently deemed out of control.
Today is looking fairly warm with the potential for some gusty winds, so likely crews will be on site till late and definitely back early in the morning tomorrow and potentially spending the night just due to access requirements. And yeah, kind of working through the weekend to get that called out. But it's looking like it will maybe take a little bit of time to get it to that point.
She says it's important for locals to be aware and checking the bcwildfire.ca website or app and checking with your regional municipality and First Nations to get the latest updates. For CFTK-TV News, I'm Jaylene Matthews.
Today marks National Indigenous Peoples Day in Canada. It's a day to reflect on the contributions and rich culture of First Nations people in Canada. CFTK-TV's Jaylene Matthews again has more on the upcoming celebrations.
National Indigenous Peoples Day, formerly known as National Aboriginal Day, was first announced in 1996 by then Governor-General Romeo LeBlanc. But for generations, the summer solstice has been recognized by many Indigenous groups and communities as a day to celebrate culture, heritage, and the longest day of the year. Celebrations this year in Terrace will be taking place a day later.
On Saturday, June 22nd, there will be a celebration for National Indigenous Peoples Day at George Little Park in Terrace, including vendors, entertainment, a fry bread contest, and a moose call competition. It all kicks off at 10 a.m. and runs until 4 p.m. For CFTK-TV News in Terrace, I'm Jaylene Matthews.
In a recent announcement, it was revealed by TC Energy that construction is set to start soon on what was once its Prince Rupert gas transmission pipeline project sometime in August. The main goal of the project is to make it possible for natural gas to be carried between the northeastern area of BC all the way to a liquefaction facility in Prince Rupert. But TC Energy won't be involved in the pipeline's construction as they recently put together a deal to sell off the project to the partnership that was formed between Western LNG, which is based out of Calgary, and the Nisga'a First Nation. TC Energy also disclosed that they are expecting the sale of the project to officially go through sometime within the next month or so. Within the past few weeks or so, a few signs that are hanging on light standers in Vanderhoof that display the message "Share the Love" were vandalized. The vandalism in question has resulted in thousands of dollars worth of damage, but police have reportedly gotten video of an individual climbing a ladder where one of the damaged banners was located. While the video is said not to show if the person on the ladder was the one to actually damage the banner, Vanderhoof's RCMP have publicized that they would like to have a word with the person that appears in the footage. Vanderhoof police also let it be known that they are seeking help from the public to figure out what happened in these incidents, so those with potentially useful information are asked to call them at 250-567-2222. Coming up next, the BC Conservatives have yet another new high-profile candidate. Welcome back. Two Captain Kirks have joined the fish farm debate and aren't holding back. In a new cheeky video that's filled with profanity, some famous Canadians take on the federal government, and as CTV's Yasmin Gannon reports, fish farmers are not amused.
Off! Open that pen, salmon farms!
Yup, that's Captain Kirks cursing about salmon in BC waters, and beamed up with another Captain Kirks, the former Vancouver Canucks goalie.
Open pen farms should really reconsider their practices.
What the Kirk McLean?
Come on, man, you're a hockey player.
This profanity-laced video for Pacific Wild, a conservation organization dedicated to protecting wildlife, calling out the federal government for allowing farms to stay open longer than promised.
But when I see what open net salmon farming is doing to the environment and wildlife, I just can't be Canadian about it any longer.
BC salmon farmers declined an interview request, but did call the cheeky campaign, quote, rude and insulting. But in the video, Shatner suggests that's kind of the point.
For almost a century, I've been a kind, decent Canadian. It's the Canadian way.
So he's willing to drop some salty language in a very non-Canadian-like fashion and is encouraging others to speak up too. And if that wasn't a big enough dose of famous Canadians, add Canadian starboy Ryan Reynolds into the mix. The video was made by a production company he co-founded.
Facilities will be expected to make restocking and harvesting decisions that are consistent with the requirement to fully terminate all open net pen farming by June 30th, 2029.
Yesterday, the federal government announced the salmon farming industry would get a 5-year reprieve after previously promising to phase out open net salmon farms by 2025.
Go Canada!
Yasmin Gannon, CTV News, Vancouver.
The BC Conservatives announced their newest high-profile candidate, former Surrey Mayor Linda Hepner. The NDP, meanwhile, said that they've officially launched their re-election campaign after months of public announcements. CTV's Rob Buffum reports on how the parties are gearing up before voters go to the polls.
There was no mistaking this for the full-throttle partisan event it was. The Premier holding court with his NDP base in Vancouver this afternoon at the party's first official campaign event in the countdown to the October 19th election.
The clock is ticking. We are E-minus 121 days to the provincial election.
EB also flagging the birth of his third child due 1 week from today.
We're expecting a beautiful baby girl. I haven't seen her yet, but her mom's good looking.
The mood energized as EB took shots at his opponents and introduced new candidates to the enthusiastic crowd.
Randy Neal, come on down.
Not to be left out, BC United's Kevin Falcon, flanked by 2 senior MLAs, held his own presser today, pledging to balance the budget if elected and targeting younger voters.
Today is a day where we start to ignite the spark of hope in young people in British Columbia.
Meanwhile, BC Conservative leader John Rustad introduced his latest high-profile candidate to the Vancouver Board of Trade, former Surrey Mayor Linda Hepner.
Her background, I think, is a great fit for us as Conservatives, especially in a city like Surrey, which has been treated as a second-class city for far too long.
Both Rustad and Hepner also keyed in on an appeal to a youthful demographic.
Hearing that 1 out of every 2 kids is thinking of leaving the province, and I have 5 grandchildren here.
There was no formal event today from the BC Greens, but on the first day of summer, expect all parties to be busy in the 4 months before voters, young and old, go to the polls. Robert Buffum, CTV News.
Olympic Village began smelling like an outhouse on a hot day due to a major pipe bursting and raw sewage flooding onto the streets. Crews scrambled to contain the mess, but not before some dirty water poured into Falls Creek. CTV's Abigail Turner reports on the race to clean up and its impact on this weekend's dragon boat races.
It's a good thing you can't smell through screens.
It's still pretty gross, and it was a lot worse. Like, you didn't want to breathe. You didn't know if it was even safe to breathe or what it was.
Otherwise, you'd be hit with the strong, stinky scent that hundreds of Olympic Village residents woke up to Thursday. sewage. Gushing gray water covering the block between 1st and 2nd Avenue on Columbia Street due to a burst pipe.
It failed. We don't know why. We won't know until we excavate and find out.
The road looking more like a body of water than a street.
The Olympic Village smells great. This morning it was quite a bit different. I guess we're competing with Calgary for news reports.
Cleanup crews and vacuum trucks contained the leak, but the powerful odor lingered into the morning.
The whole parkade smelled like almost like natural gas or like sewage. And then from the patio, you could see half the laneway was flooded. The road here is flooded.
And all that backup had to go somewhere.
The sewage would have probably gone into the catch basins and be discharged. And I don't know exactly where it goes, but I'm assuming it probably would be into False Creek.
Video showing brown water flowing into False Creek shortly after the pipe burst. Vancouver Coastal Health has been called in to assess the safety risk as the Concord Pacific Dragon Boat Festival is set to begin Saturday.
The waters of East False Creek, we would not recommend primary contact or swimming in the water. However, boating, the activities related to the Dragon Boat Festival, which we would describe as secondary contacts, are certainly within public health recommendations at this point.
As Metro Vancouver works to determine just how much sewage spilled into False Creek and when it could all dissipate.
It depends on where the tide's coming in, obviously how much sewage it is, and whether there's additional flows coming into the systems.
While the festival will go ahead as planned, it's encouraging riders to use mobile showers and hand washing stations for the health and safety of each participant. Abigail Turner, CTV News, Vancouver.
Turning to tonight's weather, the North Coast is likely to deal with rain and a low at 12 degrees. The Terrace-Kitimat area will probably see rain as well and a low at 13 degrees. And the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District instead is set to get a chance of showers while their low is at 11 degrees. On the North Coast, the week for them should pretty much see all clouds and rain while the high shifts from 13 to 15 degrees. In the Terrace-Kitimat area, their next week or so will consist of rain and clouds as well, while the high moves from 17 to 21 degrees. And in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, the upcoming week will still see clouds and a little rain, but we'll also see a decent bit of sun, and the high will bounce between 18 and 19 degrees. Checking out the highways now, visit Drive BC for the latest and up-to-date conditions, and as always, drive safe out there. On Highway 16, there is utility work, bridge maintenance, road construction work, mowing, and several special events. Highway 37 has some paving operations, bridge maintenance, roadside brushing, and frost heaves. And the Telegraph Creek Road has frost heaves as well. And this is what the roads were looking like this afternoon around the region from the view of the province's highway cams. Still to come is more information on an investigation into a Vancouver police officer. Welcome back. We're getting an even clearer picture of the financial squeeze on renters in Metro Vancouver. Housing is so expensive that many people are being forced to spend nearly their entire paycheck to get by. CTV's Craig Krause has the details.
It could take years for the majority of renters here in the city of Vancouver to save up to get into the market, and a new report from Royal LePage found that 27% of renters here in the city are currently using over half of their income just on rent alone.
Getting into the housing market is pretty expensive. I'm paying $2,200 for an apartment out in White Rock.
At the current moment, I wouldn't be able to afford my home. I can say that. So, with the rates going up and prices rising as they did. So,
Royal LePage found that more than a quarter of those renting in British Columbia plan to buy a home in the next 2 years, while 52% will not. The main driver? Not enough cash for a down payment.
most valuable real estate in the country has long been in British Columbia.
No surprise, homes are listed well above $1 million, while one-bedroom apartments are renting for an average $2,600 a month, with two-bedroom units skying to over $3,700. But could relief be on the horizon for those who have been saving to get into the market?
Now, the good news is, over the last couple of years, the actual price of homes has been relatively flat, even declining a bit last year. It's the biggest catch-up period we've seen in home values since the 1990s.
Which could translate to less rent increases in the future, something one expert says remains to be seen.
Prices have maybe come down a bit, but interest rates have risen so much that mortgage payments are much higher than they were. As a result, the most affluent renters are stuck renting, not moving into buying, and that makes the pool of renters more able to pay high rents, which of course pushes up high rents.
And Davidoff says that a solution to all of this is simply just more options for both buyers and renters as the demand and population only grows. Craig Crowe, CTV News, Vancouver.
More now on a veteran Vancouver Police Department sergeant that is under investigation for alleged sexual misconduct. The accusations involve 7 women, including police officers and former students. As CTV's Isabella Zavarisi reports, one of his former colleagues is now speaking out.
The allegations against Sergeant Kieran McConnell first came to light in 2021, but they go all the way back to 2015. He's served with the Vancouver Police Department for more than 30 years. CTV News has learned he's also been an instructor at many post-secondary schools, including Kwantlen Polytechnic University.
My heart sank, my stomach went into knots, and I was like, it's him.
The Office of the Police Complaint Commissioner is now probing accusations of alleged sexual misconduct against McConnell. Those allegations are from police officers and former students. Jeff Shantz worked with McConnell for years at Kwantlen. In an email to CTV News, the university confirms he is an instructor there.
I think it's absolutely atrocious. It's scandalous. In my view, he should be nowhere near an educational environment.
According to BC's police watchdog, in 2021, a photo of the sergeant was posted on social media. The photo drew derogatory comments about McConnell's history with students at Royal Roads University. One of the allegations from a former student details receiving sexually inappropriate messages from him, which she says continued after she graduated. BC's police watchdog says McConnell admitted to sending some of the messages, but argued communications were private. Shantz says he wasn't surprised to hear about the allegations.
I had numerous students who confided in me, students who took Kieran McConnell's classes, that they did not feel safe in those classes.
CTV News has reached out to McConnell for comment. There will be a public hearing into the matter, but that date has not yet been set, and the allegations against McConnell have not been proven in court. Isabella Zavarisi, CTV News, Vancouver.
With summer here now, BC residents are bracing for the heat and the health risks that it poses. There have been warnings that this season could be extra hot in some areas. CTV's Becca Clarkson breaks down the latest modeling and expert advice for keeping cool.
Ahead of summer's official kickoff Thursday, British Columbians are being told to prepare for the heat.
Now's the time to be prepared, to have a plan to stay safe and cool this summer.
The first weekend of the season is set to be a warm one across the province, but not extreme.
It doesn't look like it's a heat wave or a heat dome kind of effect.
British Columbians were warned last month that this summer would be an extra dry and hot one. Now, this meteorologist says the modeling has chilled out.
El Nino really has dissipated almost completely in the Pacific at this point in time, so it's looking like a much more normal summer.
But during the summer, it's not just what's on the outside that counts.
It's actually the indoor heat when it rises that is the cause of more illness, injury, and even death.
The director of Vancouver's Emergency Management Agency says it's important to know what indoor temperatures are dangerous for you.
Could be 26 degrees for the most vulnerable, up to 31 for many others.
If you don't have air conditioning, he says there are plenty of other ways to cool down.
It might be going to a friends or neighbors or taking advantage of one of the city's cooling centers that are at our community centers and library locations.
The summer heat can hit hard at bedtime.
Not only do people sleep less time, but they have less deep sleep and less REM sleep, your dreaming sleep. So that really interferes with your whole sleep architecture.
But this doctor says keeping cool at night doesn't have to be expensive.
People have done things like put their pillowcases in their freezer over the course of the day and then taking it out at night and sleeping on it.
Other low-cost options are sleeping with light cotton sheets and keeping ice packs in bed.
And then lastly, look after each other. If you know people who maybe aren't as plugged in, make sure they're aware of what they need to do.
Becca Clarkson, CTV News, Vancouver.
And now we turn our attention to the stock markets. The Canadian dollar is down 2/100ths of a cent, the price of gold is down $37.80, oil is down 56 cents, natural gas is down 2 cents, aluminum is up $22.50. In Toronto, the TSX is down 26.49 points, the Venture Index is down 1.72. In New York, the Dow Jones is up 15.57 and Nasdaq is down 32.23. Still ahead, one of Canada's greatest ever actors has sadly passed away. Welcome back. An all-time great actor is being mourned as Canada's Donald Sutherland has died at 88. From his roles in MASH to the Hunger Games, Sutherland was impactful in every generation. CTV's Heather Wright looks at his remarkable career.
I'm waiting for reports from some of you.
His career spanned nearly 7 decades, and throughout, Donald Sutherland captivated audiences around the world, starring in more than 190 films and TV shows, from Animal House to MASH to the Hunger Games franchise.
Contain it. I think of myself as an artist, and I take it very seriously.
Donald McNichol Sutherland was born in St. John, New Brunswick in 1935. At 14, he landed his first job as a news correspondent for CKBW, the local radio station. He studied engineering and drama at the University of Toronto before moving to London to pursue an acting career.
I told my father that what I wanted to be was an actor, which was kind of silly because I'd never even seen the theater.
Sutherland's big break came in 1967 with The Dirty Dozen.
Where are you from, son?
Followed by more military films like Kelly's Heroes and MASH. Off-screen, he became a vocal activist, protesting the war in Vietnam and appearing in the anti-war documentary FTA alongside Jane Fonda.
There's a particular savvy in that, isn't there?
More recently, Sutherland attracted a new generation of fans, playing President Snow in the Hunger Games and starring alongside his son Kiefer in the 2016 Western Forsaken. In a statement today, Kiefer Sutherland said his father was never daunted by a role, good, bad, or ugly. He loved what he did and did what he loved, and one can never ask for more than that. A life well lived. Often considered one of the most talented actors to never win an Academy Award, Sutherland was presented with an honorary Oscar in 2017.
I wish I could say thank you to all of the characters that I've played.
Though he spent much of his life in the United States, Sutherland said he was always rooted in Canada. Today, the Prime Minister offered his condolences to the Sutherland family.
He was a man with a strong presence, a brilliance in his craft.
Donald Sutherland was 88. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
That's all of our news for now. From everyone at CFTK-TV News, I'm Cale Maslin, and thanks for watching.